So today is my first time at a live horse race in Melbourne Cup, as well as my first time buying and betting on a horse race. There's a bit of a learning curve. It's not that easy. There's so many different ways that you can bet and buy, but I have a ticket and my race is about to start. First things first, rest assured that gambling, which includes betting on horses, is perfectly legal in Australia. In fact, the Melbourne Cup race itself is Australia and New Zealand's single biggest betting event of the year. Now, even though I did do quite a bit of research prior to the Melbourne Cup Carnival, there are so many things that you just don't know before coming here in person. For example, remembering to grab a race day program at the entrance to the event. This program gives you a rundown of all the horses, the jockeys, the trainers, and the owners. It also gives you valuable information about what tracks horses and jockeys do well on. Another thing you want to get is something called the Form Guide. This one gives you information on performances of the horses and the horse handicaps. Yeah, handicaps like golf. Seeing some of the horses need to carry extra weight on them depending on their past performances. I don't really understand this exactly, but it's supposed to equalize the chances of the competitors. Anyway, seems like this would be an important fact to know. All of these would be important facts to know, which sadly I only figured out after the event. In addition, understanding the tracks and how the weather influences the tracks is equally important for betting. Tracks are rated from 1 to 10, 1 being dry and 10 being very wet. It's important to check if the horse that you want to bet on has previous wins on a similar track condition. If the horse you want to bet on has never won on a wet track and it's pouring rain, which it often does in Melbourne, you may want to reconsider your bet. Then again, it is called gambling for a reason, isn't it? Barrier draws are also important. A starting barrier, which is of course the little stall that the horse is kept in at the start of the race. Well, historically, horses in barrier boxes closest to the track railing can be problematic because the horse gets boxed in and he finds it hard to find an opening or a space to break away from the rest. According to races.com.au, the most successful barrier boxes in the Melbourne Cup race history have been barrier 14, 8 and 11. In fact, the 11 is the most successful of all the Melbourne Cup race winners. In contrast, barrier 18 has yet to have its first win, which is really important if you were going to bet on barrier 18, I reckon. I do believe that these statistics are based on the Melbourne Cup race itself, but I'm pretty sure you could use them if you were going to bet on any of the other races and race days. Inside the grounds, there are tons of places you can bet. Some stands right as you walk in the gates of the Flemington Racecourse. There's also a big building with official betting counters, for lack of a better word. Well, this seems less chaotic, and since I didn't know what I was doing, I thought this would be a safer option for me, so that's where I went to bet. Basically, if you're like me and you've never done this before, you are not going to learn this in one day. Just understanding how the rating system works and the horses and their performances, etc., is not enough. You also need to understand the betting system and the odds. None of which I did, of course, and probably still don't 100%. But I will share what I know. The fact is, this is a week-long cultural event and carnival, and besides betting, there's so much more to learn about it. Luckily for you, I have compiled a series of 6 videos titled Beginner's Guide to the Melbourne Cup, where I do a quick rundown of all the basics you need to know. What to wear, the etiquette, the difference between the carnival days. I also add a bit of history and a couple of fun facts. So, even if you are a pro at the sport, you might still want to watch it because perhaps there are some interesting tidbits you didn't know yourself. Okay, let me run down a few betting options, at least how I understand them. It would appear that the easiest way to bet would be to go for an office sweepstaker. Now this is for people that have no experience, right? So a sweep is when a number of people purchase a set of tickets, each representing a horse. The tickets are given out randomly and each ticket costs the same. I mean, it can vary between $1 to 10 Australian dollars. So there's no skill involved here and the odds are completely ignored. This just comes down to pure luck. However, if you're going alone and you don't have a bunch of people that you can share the sweepstakers, well, then there's a couple of other options for you. You might have to play some odds, which from all the things I've mentioned before to consider, you will need a little bit of knowledge and experience. And as you can imagine, there are many, many different types of ticket odds that you can play. I'm only going to give you the 3 that I think are the least complicated odds to play, which would be a win, a place, and each way. Okay, I'll run down the basic concept of each one. A win is exactly what it is. It is you betting on the winner of the race, as in the horse that wins the race. A place is where you pick a horse that might come in either first, second, or third place. And each way is supposed to be the most common one, and this is where you combine a win and a place bet. In other words, you bet which horse comes in which place. Now, the rest of the betting options and odds isn't supremely complicated, with one exception. Some bets only apply to the Melbourne Cup race itself. At least the rules are different for that race. And some apply to the other races, even though they have the same name on the ticket. So I think it's better if I just don't even try and make sense of it and possibly mess everything up. If this is going to be something that you want to play, I would highly recommend that you ask someone with a bit more experience to help you out. Okay, if the weather on the track and the performances and the handicaps is not enough to consider, here's something else. There's an interesting fact about the names of the horses. I would imagine this applies again to the Melbourne Cup race itself, but again, something interesting to consider. Horses with a single word name have won the Melbourne Cup race 84 times. Then 61 winners with 2-word names and only 5 horses with 3-word names have ever won. Okay, back to me trying to bet. I thought my mind was made up on an each-way ticket. However, when I got to buying the ticket itself, I drew a complete blank. I couldn't remember anything about the betting options that I had researched the day before. So I kind of improvised a little bit. Sneaky improvisation, I have to say. The guy in front of me bought a ticket and he really seemed to know what he was doing. So when it was my turn, I sort of pretended that he was my friend John. I told the lady that he said that I should just buy the same ticket that he got. Not a great strategy and probably a bit sneaky, but it worked. And luckily the guy didn't spend too much money. I ended up just getting one ticket for $20 Australian. And to be honest, I didn't even really pay attention to what type of ticket or bet I got. The race itself was so exhilarating. You have to remember, this is my first time at a live horse race, and I was standing so close to the field, I could feel the wind as the horses powered by. After that, trying to make sense of my ticket or anything else really was very much impossible. So I just went straight back to where I bought the ticket. I asked the lady to have a quick look for me. The good news is I got 17 Australian dollars back, which is considered a loss still because, I lost $3. But hey, next time, hopefully, I'll have my wits about me. Bet smarter, win big, and retire. In the meantime, I am going to have to put my early retirement plans on hold for just a bit longer.